So chapter 8 of Boruto Vortex is finally here, and let's just say that Kawaki hasn't lived up to the title of Apostle of Destruction. We also have the Shinju beings invading the village and Himawari tapping into her latent Tail Beast powers. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the person on the cover for this month is actually Jura, and the title is Pointless Matter. Then we have the subtext that says the divine tree Jura approaches Konoha. The target is Naruto, who was supposed to be sealed. Now the chapter starts with Ada viewing the conversation Boruto had with Mitsuki, with Boruto saying, "I'm your son, there's no one that can replace me. Come to me whenever you're ready." Then we get this panel of Ada saying, "Wait a minute, isn't he too cool? But this is bad." So this is Ada having some conflicting feelings here, because we have to remember that she didn't show much interest in Boruto because he was too young, but now he's looking kinda cool, so she's like, you know, swaying a bit here. But she also recognizes that this is bad because he's literally telling Mitsuki about the situation, so she's kinda conflicted about what she should do about it. Then we see Kawaki pull up with his bad manners as per usual, saying, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? Get moving and follow Mitsuki's trail. That bastard Boruto might get away with it." Ada then replied saying, "Please, let's wait for a minute." So Kawaki has no respect for Ada here, which Delta points out because Delta is back into the story again. So she's like, "Yo, hold it Kawaki, what's with the bossy attitude towards Ada? It's really pissing me off." Now to be fair here, this might not be a natural reaction for Delta because she's under the effects of Ada's charm ability, so she does care about Ada. So that's why she's kind of reacting in this way. But of course Kawaki doesn't care, he just says, "Yo, I don't care what it does to you. You can piss off all you want." But what I found more interesting here is just Damon just leaning back at the railing, just looking at Kawaki. He isn't saying anything, and I don't know if Damon has matured because he hasn't grown an inch, but he seems to have changed a bit personality wise, because back in part 1 he would have been on Kawaki, maybe not punching him but just saying something to clap back at him, you know, like, "Be careful how you speak to my sister" and all that stuff. Now I did say this in the spoilers and everyone was like, you know, maybe Ada told him not to trouble Kawaki and that's why he's not saying anything, but we literally saw in the prior chapter that he does speak back to Kawaki. But in this situation where he's being overly disrespectful against his sister, he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna chill. So I feel like Damon is just letting the chips fall where they may, because if we go back to the prior chapter, he's like telling Kawaki that what would happen if the Shinju beings come to the village, start asking about Naruto, people would realize that something is wrong, right? And maybe Kawaki will get exposed. So I think that's what Damon is waiting for, which would help him in the situation, I guess, instead of him just lashing out at Kawaki. But I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, back to the story. We have Ada saying there he is. He's in the woods in the southern main gate. So Kawaki then left and brought Delta with him, which I found interesting because Kawaki doesn't necessarily use help. He isn't like someone who wants a team or someone to help him. So the mere fact that he brought Delta with him, he literally called her to come with him to go fight Boruto. This means that Kawaki isn't confident that he could beat Boruto on his own, which I guess is just supplementary evidence to prove that Boruto is just far beyond Kawaki at this point. But yeah, we then see that Ada is flying in the sky with Kawaki and she isn't using the rocket boosters that she used in part 1. So this new version of Delta 2.0, she seems to be more skilled or maybe possesses different abilities because, you know, the Delta prior couldn't do this. Now that doesn't then mean that she's stronger than the prior Delta, but it could also mean that she is. We just have to wait and see. Now again, she is under the effects of Ada, so she says to Kawaki that if Ada gets sick of you, I'll kill you instantly. Kawaki then replied saying, "Once I've done what I need to do, I'll disappear without a word." So Kawaki is pretty much still on his own self-expulsion stuff, which you guys can pretty much pick up what I'm saying here, but you know, it is what it is. We then see that the clawgrams are still like roaming the village, so every clawgram hasn't been absorbed into the Shinju beans, which was a question I had in the prior chapters because you know that code created over 1,000 of them, right? So a lot of them should be remaining roaming the village or maybe in the 10th house dimension, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But we have Boruto telling Shikamaru that the transformation process of them turning into a divine tree has already begun. Shikamaru then replies saying that the divine tree is said to be capable of sucking the entire life out of a planet. Do you mean that the end of this planet is near? Boruto replied saying that not yet, not quite there. But if it eats me or Kawaki, it will complete the divine tree, and the chakra fruit will then be produced. That's when the planet will die. So this confirms what I said in the prior chapter review, that the Tentels or the Shinjus aren't complete divine trees. They have to consume an Otsutsuki despite having the chakra from Ishiki's karma. We then have Shikamaru mention the other ninjas that were turned into trees as well. He mentioned several of them. Boruto then explained that they're using their chakras, that's what's keeping them alive. I still don't know what their motives are. So I don't know what this means. Now, this could be that if you kill Sasuke, the one that's in the tree, then you then kill Hidari. But it could mean the opposite, that if you kill Hidari, then the Sasuke that's in the tree will also die as well. So we need some more clarification, but I think if you read it as it's stated here, this means that if you kill Sasuke, you kill Hidari. So this might bring up some conflicting points here, because we have Sarada wanting to stop Hidari. Will she end up killing her father to save the day? Who knows, but I guess this might be an interesting plot point. Then we have Shikamaru replying to Boruto saying, Boruto, just how much do you know? And we have Boruto just looking off into the distance. Now I did find this interesting, and I posted about this on Twitter, that this might be hinting towards Boruto seeing into the future using Momoshiki's Byakugan. Because him asking Boruto just how much do you know could just be hinting at Boruto just knowing about the Ten Tails, but then it could also be like a red herring, kinda pointing to Boruto knowing more than he should know, which means that he has knowledge of the future, which goes back to what he said in chapter 2 about the horrors of the Ten Tails and the future they need to avoid. So if you ask me personally, I would say that that's what they're hinting at here, but if you want to look at it at face value, you could just say that he's talking about the information about the Ten Tails evolving, which is happening in present day, of course. We then moved on to Kawaki connecting to Shikamaru using the sensory team, then explaining that they found Boruto's location. Now of course Boruto is still connected to Shikamaru, so he could hear what Kawaki is saying without speaking. Kawaki then went on to explain his strategy, saying that Delta will attack him from above, and then Kawaki will go in with a pincer attack. Now Shikamaru isn't too confident in Kawaki's abilities here, saying that Boruto is really skilled at this point, so this again is pointing to Boruto just being above Kawaki. And then Kawaki replied saying, don't talk so freely, Shikamaru, you want him to get away from us? And then Boruto just like teleports away using Flying Thunder God, so Kawaki missed his chance by just a few seconds. Now we also had something hinting towards a possible conflict between Kawaki and Shikamaru later on, because Kawaki said, I never felt his presence, and I'm sure he never felt mine. He was gone before he could even sense me. So Kawaki seems to be like contemplating how that could have happened, maybe someone informed him of it. So Kawaki might be suspecting Shikamaru or someone from the sensory team. Now then switch to the conversation between Mitsuki and Ada. Now this conversation is mostly them just talking about their feelings towards Boruto and Kawaki. So first we have Ada saying that he told me to look for you, but the objective was simply to find Boruto. As soon as he found out that location, he flew away. Mitsuki then replied saying that him getting mad at me would be a waste of time for him, wouldn't it? Then we have Damon kinda asking Mitsuki if he feels any grief when he says that type of stuff, because again, like, everyone knows that Mitsuki has this attachment to Boruto or slash Kawaki, so Mitsuki acting this way is kinda weird to them. And then Mitsuki replied saying, not at all, it doesn't matter much in and of itself. That's what I thought for a long time now. We then had Mitsuki saying that until he met Ada, he never knew what love felt like. Maybe it's because he's an artificial human being created from scratch, and it's not just about love. I really don't understand myself in the first place. He then said that I didn't think it was necessary, as long as the sun that shines on me is still here. At the extreme, most things don't matter, even about myself. That's what I thought, but I was wrong. That's right. I above all can't affirm myself. I'll end up losing sight of things before I know it. What the sun means to me, what matters to me the most. So it somewhat seems like Mitsuki is taking Boruto's advice from the prior chapter that he can shine by himself, he doesn't need anyone, but at the same time he seems to be kinda not there as yet. But at the same time you can't expect the core aspect of a character to change overnight, you know, so I guess we'll have to just wait and see. Now he did say that he feels like him and Ada are somewhat the same because she doesn't know why she likes Kawaki. He then mentions that the person he believed to be the sun, when I felt that he might not be real, I was afraid of losing it. I had no clue if the sun was real or not. I tried not to think about it. Ada then replied saying, are you trying to say that I'm the same? You think I'm a naive person who's madly in love with someone? Mitsuki then said, I didn't mean that. Sorry if it seemed like it. Guess I was too presumptuous. And the conversation pretty much wraps up with Ada saying that she'd like to have a long talk with Boruto. We then switched over to Jura and Hidari in the Ten Tails Palace or whatever that's called. Jura then leaned back into the black box we saw in the prior chapter and teleported to the village through one of the claw grimes. He then says, alright, it's about time. Go ahead, Hidari. They then popped up in the village and walked through the front gates like it's their place, of course. Shikamaru is of course notified of this, not like he can like physically do anything about it, but of course they let him know that someone has invaded the village and they're trying to verify their chakra data. One is negative and the other one is Sasuke Uchiha. Now this part is really interesting and I think a lot of people miss this. Now I have made multiple videos before talking about who Jura could be, and the mere fact that they could sense Sasuke's chakra but couldn't pick up on Jura, it's likely possible that Jura isn't Kawaki. And it's also possible that it isn't Ishiki, Jigen, or Ninja 1615. So I don't know who this guy is, because even though Jigen and Ishiki wasn't a part of the village, the system already has like a whiff of their chakra because they did come to the village, so the system would have been able to identify this person as Jigen or Ishiki. Though at the same time I could see the argument being made that since Jigen and Ishiki aren't technically members of the village and they're like bad guys, they wouldn't register them, and you have to be registered to be like detected, you know, and identified. But at the same time, you know, like the system should be able to detect familiar chakra, and they said that the other one is negative. But at the same time, negative doesn't mean it's unfamiliar, it just means that it's not matching with any members of the village. So again, this could in fact be Jigen or Ishiki. Now of course this is being relayed to everyone because apparently everyone is always connected to the sensory team, or they just connected them for this specific purpose, because Sarada is also notified and she's like, Dad? And I'm sure Sarada didn't sense him because we have Sumire there, you know, looking as per usual. So, you know, I guess this is just like the comms team. Now we then have Hidari saying, where are you, Uzumaki Naruto? And Jura replying saying, I don't know where he is, but I do know one thing. Then we have like ninjas 616, 617, 618, 619, and 610 standing atop like a building near a water tank, and they're like, yo, if you take one more step, you'll be considered an enemy. You there, Sasuke Uchiha, right? State your purpose for invading. Shikamaru then says, follow the instructions, prioritize the evacuations of the villagers. Then we have Ada like chipping in saying that I saw them a while ago, sorry for the late report. They are the Ten Tails and somehow they have self-awareness. Needless to say, they are enemies of Konoha. So she basically confirmed what Boruto told Shikamaru just a moment earlier. And then we have like this panel of these guys being murdered by, you know, wood release. Apparently the Ten Tails have this, and this isn't anything new because wood release is the Kekkei Genkai of the Ten Tails, because you know the Ten Tails is just a tree, so you know, wood, yeah, makes sense. Anyways, moving on, we have Jura in like a bookstore. He's like, yo, these books are great. Looks like we can expect unexpected encounters. Now as for Hidari, he seems to be teasing Jura in some sense, because he's still like, yo, is he here, Naruto Uzumaki? That's all he's been saying this entire time. And Jura then says, interesting, the key point for me is that you said it with a straight face. So it does seem like Hidari is just messing with Jura. Then we have Jura kind of detect something coming at him and he dodges, and it seems to be Kawaki's rods coming from the ground. So he was able to like perceive them and dodge pretty easily. Then we have Kawaki like swooping in and kicking away Hidari. Now as for the spoilers, it seemed like Kawaki had this great feat, but it really wasn't, because Hidari blocked his kick and he only like moved a few like meters, barely. So this isn't really much of a feat. Then we have Kawaki saying, yo, who are you guys? Why did you come to Konoha? Then we have Jura coming out saying, don't cause a mess in front of the store. The treasure trove will be damaged, Kawaki. That's when you see like Jura use wood release again to like engulf Kawaki in wood, apparently, you know, obviously, because you know it's wood release. He then tried to attack Kawaki while he was stuck, but Kawaki disappeared using Tsukinai Kona. Kawaki then tried to land a hit on Jura, but Jura was able to react pretty easily and then like smashed it with one punch. He then like smacked Kawaki across the face and then said to Kawaki that I'm not gonna kill you yet, stay put Otsutsuki. Then just kicked him across the village and he smacked into like this water tank. Now Kawaki was in his karma state, so this is Kawaki amped by the karma, and he basically got two-pieced by Jura, because Jura clearly is faster than Kawaki because he reacted to him multiple times pretty easily, and then he like destroyed his like hand, which isn't strong in my opinion. Like we've seen people destroy this all the time, but again, this is Kawaki amped by the karma. Then he just kicked him across the village and Kawaki's like out cold, he's unconscious. So yeah, Kawaki just isn't Jura level apparently. And that's when Jura seemingly sensed Naruto's chakra. He's like, there he is, Naruto Uzumaki. Hidari replied saying, are you sure? Jura then says he's a Jinchuriki possessing a tailed beast. As an incarnation of the same tailed beast, I know what I'm talking about. I can sense the chakra of the tailed beast within him. Now this part is really interesting because Jura says he's an incarnation of the same tailed beast, which isn't true, I don't think, because you know Naruto's tailed beast is from a completely different Ten Tails and Jura is from, you know, this recent Ten Tails. So I don't see how this makes any sense, because you know it just doesn't, unless like every Ten Tails is just one beast. Like like there's this one Ten Tails, and he just like lets off separate portions of his body and creates multiple baby Ten Tails. So technically in that way it would be the same beast, just separate portions of it, you know, if you get what I mean. So I guess it could make sense if they explain it in that way. Now we then see Sarada running over to the location of where Sasuke's chakra was detected. She's like, chakra data match, it's Sasuke Uchiha. Then she remembers Boruto saying that the Ten Tails, my master, was absorbed by it. She then says, what's going on? Why did they come to Konoha? We then see Team 10 along with Himawari running to the location as well. I don't know why these guys are running to the location and not the qualified jonin in the village, you know, Sakura, you know, the big guns. But you know, apparently these guys are the best they could do. Okay, so anyways, we have Shikadai saying that, alright, don't hesitate even if it's Sasuke. He's the same traitor in the league with that bastard Boruto. Inojin then says, don't worry Himawari, I'm right here with you. That's when Jura just appeared in front of them. It seems like he teleported, but it's more so likely that he just flew, you know, and just descended before them. And then he's like, yo, what's going on here? Like he's looking at Himawari, and then Hidari says, who's that? Naruto Uzumaki is here. And Jura says, weird, her body. What does this mean? Then we have like the subtext saying, chasing after the tail beast chakra, Himawari stands before them. Can you intercept the divine tree? And that's where the chapter ends. Now of course you guys have watched my video from yesterday or the day before, which explains why Himawari has this power, which mostly has to do with like Himawari possessing Hamura and Hagoromo's chakra, which combines and creates Kaguya's chakra, and Kaguya became a tailed beast, and with like Naruto passing down the tailed beast chakra to Himawari. But if you guys want to see the full in-depth explanation of this, just go back to that video. With that said, the chapter itself was pretty cool. Of course, like Kawaki fans are not gonna like this chapter, of course, you know, this is just, it's not a good look, okay? It's not a good look. But of course, you know, this is only temporary because Kawaki is going to rise again. This is just a part of his character arc, okay? So I would say like enjoy it while it lasts, you know, make fun of Kawaki, because when he starts collecting bodies, like you guys are gonna switch up again, of course, but it is what it is. With that said, if you guys enjoy the content, you know, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and also ring that notification bell to be notified when I post new content. All in all, thanks for watching. Peace out.